IVM.
He is one of the youngest member of parliament and the most outspoken parliamentarians. He's part of the rising brigade of young politicians in the country attempting to shape a new era in Indian political system. He is a blues musician. He loves technology. He's the coolest dude in town, but he's also been a union minister in defense, civil aviation, urban development, information technology, and he has multiple passions. Today, my guest is none other than Milind Deora, a dear friend and India's super politician. Really excited today to have on my show none other than a very dear friend, Milind Deora. Milind, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vishal.
It's
been so good to see you
after
so long.
Absolutely. But I've been, of course, tracking you and all your exploits on Twitter and Facebook. You've been doing a lot of things, my friend.
Trying to.
You just got back from this exciting trip in Sydney.
We were in, Sachin Pilot and I were in Sydney and in Melbourne. Actually, we had gone there on like a part of a goodwill visit, not funded by taxpayer money, by the way.
Every time you speak, you have to clarify that.
Because
right?
people, whenever politicians sort of put photographs of themselves doing work overseas, the first assumption is that it's funded by a taxpayer. So it's different private organizations sometimes that invite you. We were invited to address the Australia-India Institute, which is a very powerful think tank based in the University of Melbourne, to meet political leaders, business leaders, the Indian diaspora. So it was very interesting. I mean, my first time down under.
No, and you've been doing these trips for several years. But what I want to do is I wanted to recall literally the first time we met, because you are actually possibly the first ever politician I met in my life, because I was all of 21.
And the last,
yeah. And the best, let's put it that way. I was all of 21 and I just started my company. And again, this is the...
How old are you now?
41.
41. Yeah, so we are the same age actually.
Yeah, almost the same age.
We were the same age, yeah. We met 20 years ago, you're right.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
When you started India Games, I still remember.
Yeah, and I remember getting...
You had a game, or you were planning to come up with a game which was on politicians, or...
Yeah, we did a lot of games on politicians too.
We won't name them, but I remember you had something on one of the politicians.
Yeah. I'll tell you the game. It was called Mud Dan. Mud Dan,
right.
And we had our famous Laluji in that game.
I remember this. I remember that.
So there
was mud or something, right?
Yeah, not mud. It was Gobar.
I remember.
But yeah, that was one of our most popular games anyway. But we'll talk about that later. But I remember during that time you were such a curious kid, man. You had asked me so many questions. So and you were at that point of time, I think you were working as an EA, or what were you were like also starting, right?
I had basically just come at 21. I had just finished my studies in the US. I had worked in the US for a year, and I basically came back to India. My family we had a family business which my dad had set up before he got into
plastics,
politics. That's right, in packaging. And I had very limited interest in that business, to be honest. Although as a kid growing up, I was kind of always raised to think that, you'll study business management overseas, come back, look after the family business. Never was I encouraged to get into politics. And at that time, this was in 99, 2000.
Yeah.
There was the sort of .com boom in India. And I still remember, having been a former telecom and IT minister, and I would often laugh to myself when I became a telecom IT minister, because when I was a minister from 2000...
I remember meeting you a few times.
That's right.
Delhi,
you came to my ministry office.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2011, when I became a minister, and we were looking at the figures of, internet penetration in India, it's so massive. And we were the world's fastest growing internet economy. But back in 2000, we barely had a few lakh internet users, that too on a dial-up modem, which would barely work.
Yeah.
And yet companies like yours were getting valuations of $500 million and $1 billion. And so I found it a very exciting time. I befriended a guy named Devang Mehta, who's no more.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and he was the founding president of NASSCOM.
Yeah.
And was really the pioneer who, created, I would say, not created, but he certainly marketed the IT and IT-enabled industry around the world. He was a Gujarati chartered accountant, oddly enough, in an industry filled with South Indians. And he did an
he was a
outstanding
very
job.
sweet man. I remember
He was a
meeting
great
him
guy.
several times.
So and I befriended him, and then through him, I got interested in what's happening in India, and that's how I met people like you, Vishal. And I would pretty much,
and that's what the reason.
And I think even with you, I just cold called you.
Yeah.
And I cold called a lot of people, the Avendus guys.
Ranu
and Gaurav. And so many other entrepreneurs, many of whom are still very succcessful. The Bazi guys, that time there was a company called Bazi.com. Avnish and Suvir, who now run Matrix and whatever the name of the other company is called. And so for me, it was an exciting time because I could feel that there was something exciting happening in India. It was obviously happening in the tech space. I think for the first time in India's history, there were entrepreneurs who were sort of quitting high-paying jobs and becoming entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And that had never happened earlier. Earlier you were in the old economy, you needed to have connections, political connections, bureaucratic connections. And that's the only way you could make it. And people were the first time were actually taking those risks.
The reason
this was much before the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals.
The reason I'm actually bringing this up is because suddenly we are talking of Startup India and this whole thing. You were in a way championing startups or helping us. I remember coming to you for so many small things, right? Which we couldn't do and take your help at that point of time. This was happening in 1999. So what was your interest? How did you become? You could have, your dad, of course, I remember meeting your dad several times also. And, he was very close to, of course, Mr. Ambani and all those folks. So you were already in a way connected to all the industries in general, but your interest was to talking to startups.
I liked the excitement, energy around what was going on. I liked the fact that there is a new architecture for doing business being created at the time. You didn't have to be a large family-owned entity, as I said. And to me, that was exciting. To me, the fact that people were coming from, northern India, eastern India, southern India, rural parts of the country, to Mumbai, to Hyderabad, to Bangalore, to Chennai, setting up tech companies, getting high valuations, even though I thought it was a bubble. But I thought
people still think it is a bubble.
Yeah, but I thought it was an exciting time. I mean, and I think that I personally, then again, I became IT Telecom Minister of Government of India in 2011. I saw that the second wave of internet entrepreneurs, if you want to call it that, which goes beyond tech, with Sachin, Bansal and Kunal, Bahal and all these guys, and Bhavesh Agarwal and all of them who are doing great work as well. But I think that people like you, Vishal, you guys were the first generation of Indian entrepreneurs who were willing to, in a sense, create a business, because the system was so flawed and because the architecture of India was so messed up in the way that it was. So I still have very close friends who are people like who started out with you, who were in their early 20s, and they started out in 99, 2000 during the first, I don't want to call it a .com boom, but during the first tech internet
It's
boom.
the first wave. I mean, literally the first wave.
Sure.
But I also remember that during that time, there was an event hosted. It was called Jazz by the Bay at that time, or it was called Just Now. I mean, what do I know? The name kept changing. It was called Jazz by the Bay, where I saw you playing the first time. I think you were playing jazz, literally, or blues. So when did that whole hobby of yours started?
That started when I was very young, but very sort of kind of like, I mean, you have to go to your swimming class. You have to go to your guitar class. It was like that. So I mean, at the age of 5, I think we were forced to learn the guitar, my brother and I. At the age of 7, only he dropped out and I was forced for some reason. And then
he's also into music.
He's into music. But then I never liked the guitar because it would hurt my fingers. My fingers would bleed. And my teacher, who's a great man who I go and visit sometimes, he's in his late 80s now. He would also make me play stuff which I didn't want to play or listen to. And I was getting into rock at the time. So there was like a band like Guns N' Roses, for example.
And this was in India itself.
Yeah, very much here, very much in Mumbai. And I was listening to those kind of bands and I wanted to play that kind of stuff. And I was 13, 14, I was listening to Queen and all these great bands. And then at one point on my own, I went to my mother and said, can you please contact that guitar teacher who I didn't like and can you ask him if he'll teach
on
me
your
again?
own, huh?
Yeah, on my
Something
own.
happened in school or college, maybe.
I mean, it was a good way to meet people.
And you were in
it was
cathedral.
In cathedral. It
Yeah.
was certainly a good way to impress. When you wanted to start dating and all, it was a good way to impress girls at the time. And so I went to her and said, "Can you connect me to this teacher again?" And I met him and then started learning from him, and did about a year, 2 years of classes with him, again getting the basics right. Then I pretty much taught myself, and then started listening to more and more music, kept going deeper and deeper into music. When I went to the US to study there, I got exposed to another genre of music, like blues, and which is really the
But
roots
again,
of...
you come from a traditional Marwadi family, right?
I'm half Marwadi, half Maharashtrian, but I'm fully
of course,
Mumbai,
and
as I say.
your mom is also into bridge, right? She used to. She, I presume, continues to play bridge.
She plays bridge,
and
which, by the way, is a card game. Yeah.
And she's like at some very big level at it.
Where were you? Were you in IIT? Or were you?
No, you're not. I dropped. I was Podar. You were
Podar.
Okay,
of
right. Course, Podar was a better college. We always say.
So apparently, IITians and people from IIM still play bridge. And they're the only generation of people I know who play bridge besides my mother's.
So, but I'm saying, where did the creativity come from, right? Because your dad, of course, he was very business and very...
I think she was a creative person. She was certainly a more creative person. She appreciated the art. She was an interior designer. But again, these are all debatable things. Where did music come from? He loved music also. Yeah. Yesterday, for example, Muhammad Rafi, his son, came to meet me and we were talking about how my father was obsessed with Muhammad Rafi as a kid growing up. So I was telling him that even as a child growing up on a Sunday, we would always be exposed to all kinds of music, Indian classical, instrumental, Western, Bruce Springsteen, Michael Jackson. So he liked music a lot, much more than she did, but she was certainly more creative. But again, I don't know what music, how I got so into music. I can't explain, but I'm very deeply into music. I mean, for me, music it's such an important thing that it's like, I find it hard to actually, if someone tells me they're not into music, I'm not otherwise very judgmental, but I instantly become judgmental. And so music for me is a big deal. It's like saying, if someone says I'm not into preserving the environment, I don't want to talk to that person. Music is like that to me. It evokes a very strong feeling if somebody is not into music. And on the contrary, if somebody is very into music, even if it's not the music I like, but music is a big part of their life, I instantly connect with that person.
So growing up, you, of course, your father was one of India's greatest, leaders. He kind of worked around all these things. He was representing South Mumbai constituency. What were your memories of your father? Because he must be doing so much work, and what are your favorite memories?
I mean, he came from a generation where he was a Marwadi businessman who came to Mumbai with no money, no family background in business.
And where did he come from?
Politics. He was from Rajasthan, from a city called Lakshmangarh in Rajasthan. And he came here and pretty much was very entrepreneurial, did quite well in business, and loved politics as a hobby. He actually liked public life. He actually liked social work more than he liked politics till the day he died.
I remember what he did with the whole computers, donating computers,
That's right.
that whole
That's
thing.
right.
And I presume, are you continuing with that whole
We
thing?
are. But I mean, now digital literacy means something very different, than having a computer and a desktop.
Yeah.
But you're right. He, he brought the Gates Foundation to India. They gave at that time, in about 25 years ago, about $6 million, which is a lot of money, to Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, where my father was vice president, and they basically created this massive nationwide digital literacy program.
No, I remember that.
They had centers in Manipur and all that. But for him, politics was always social work. And again, as kids growing up, I didn't like politics. I liked going to an eye camp with him where there's poor people benefiting from free cataract surgeries. I liked seeing what he's doing with the digital literacy program. But I understood that, to get to the stage of being able to execute and implement these kind of things, you needed to have some kind of political support also. And I didn't like the politics of it, which is dealing with, organizational issues, politics between other people. It's so hostile today. So for me, my memory was really of a father who worked very hard, was very sincere about what he did, was very passionate about what he did, but really had very little family time also. And so I never wanted to be in politics, because for me, politics meant you have no family life, you have no private personal life. And that's why when I got into politics eventually at the age of 27 and I contested the parliamentary election and won, even today, if you talk to my closest friends, all of whom are my childhood friends from school, who I've known since I was 2 or 3 or 4 years old, they still are in disbelief that I got into politics, because we were all convinced that politics sucks. That doing something
I was
good,
convinced you would be doing a startup for some reason. I was like,
maybe,
because
yeah.
you were like so much into tech and so much into all of this.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, I was more interested in those things and I had very little interest in politics, but I liked the confluence of policy, private sector, supporting those in need. I still like that. That's what gives me a high in politics.
No, but again, see, Mukul, your brother didn't take up politics. He's gone into music and he's doing many other things. So what made you take that decision? Is it because, was there any pressure for you?
No pressure. So look, contrary to, like, for example, a lot of my colleagues who are in politics, a lot of them were pretty much told at a young age that they will get into politics by their father and mother, and they were raised in a way that they will get into politics. Politics was their dal roti, if you will, in a sense that your home depended on politics, your status in society depended on politics. We never really had that, if you can call it an advantage or a disadvantage. And so we were never really dependent on politics as the basis of your life and your lifestyle.
No, and I think your father had built such a great business and all this stuff. So it was
well,
not
I mean,
like,
it was not a great, big, it was small, it was a medium enterprise, but he basically, again, the way we were, we never had a caste or a religious identity based on which our politics revolved. A lot of people do have that.
Yeah.
A lot of political families have that.
And your father didn't have a political background. There's nothing like
and he had no background, and he's he's a Baniya Marwadi. It's not that that's going to get you a lot of votes in Mumbai or make you do something amazingly well. So he didn't have the advantage. In fact, he had a lot of headwinds because of not having perhaps the right caste or the right.
No, and of course, when he was in power over here, there was Shiv Sena with Balasaheb Thackeray ji and all these. I mean, it was a very different time of politics then.
Yeah, I mean, he enjoyed relations with people across all parties. He had great relations with all opposition parties at the time, and even I've tried to do the same thing. And I still believe that the politics in India today is just too hostile. It's too confrontational. It's too, all of us, all political parties, regardless of party A or B, all political leaders need to take a chill pill. We just need to calm down.
So had you not
be able to sit in a room together, have a cup of tea together, chat.
And maybe hug each other too now.
Yeah, exactly. It never hurts to hug. And to really, and to work towards a common goal. Because I think India it has a lot of advantages, but there are some serious concerns also.
So let's go back to when you were 27 years old. Had you not taken up that thing and told your father, listen, or told everybody, that, listen, I wouldn't.
My father didn't tell me to take politics.
If your decision was not politics, what would you be doing today?
I would have probably been doing something in the area of business. Could have been running my family business, which I didn't like, and we sold much later. Could have been, I would have taken up a job as a professional. I might have become an entrepreneur. I might have come to you for a job.
Because you had a lot of startup ideas, no? I mean, more than that. That's why I was surprised that.
I would have come to you for a job probably.
Come on, I mean,
no, honestly, because I like gaming and I still like gaming, although I don't have time to play games. But like at least the video game variety. Can play other kind of games.
You were among the first politicians I knew who adopted technology. You were on Facebook, Twitter, all technology platforms you adopted fast.
I mean, I like these kind of things. So I look, for me personally, I always try and remain young in my head. And I think that especially if you're in politics, it's very, very important to stay relevant and to stay young. And my profession is such a profession that you test market dynamics and market forces once in 5 years. Unlike a business where you're facing competition on a daily basis.
Every quarter, every
Not
month,
even every quarter.
Day.
You're facing every day. If my sales have gone up or gone down. or there's a new entrant. Politics, you really test it every 5 years. So it's very easy to get disrupted. It's very easy to get complacent. It's very easy to live in your own echo chamber where you're disconnected. So I try, not that I succeed 100% of the time, but I try to stay relevant. And just by knowing what's going on, I'm kind of paranoid in my head about if there's a new app, if there's a new Twitter, a new Facebook, a new WhatsApp. I'm paranoid about knowing what that is. So, for example, for me, this is the first podcast I'm doing.
Yep.
And it might be the first podcast I'll listen to, in fact, once it's out there.
No, and again, right?
So one of the reasons when you said, Milind, will you do this? Was when you said the word podcast, I said it's not that complicated. It's just ultimately an interview. It's like a radio interview.
Yeah.
But it's foreign and alien to me. And it's important that I know what this trend is about, how it works.
And believe me, when we said, let's get somebody who understands politics, you were the first name because I didn't have to spend too much time explaining what is the podcast. And of course...
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Some time ago, 5 successful restaurateurs came together to form the Colaba cartel. The founders of the table, Gauri Devi Dayal and Jay Yusuf, partnered with the founders of Woodside Inn, Abhishek Honawar, Pankil Shah and Sumit Gambhir to open a new restaurant in Colaba. If you've ever dreamed of opening a restaurant or love eating out, you want to listen in. The Colaba Cartel. This exclusive 10-part series is hosted by Gauri Devi Dayal and Amit Doshi. Catch new episodes of the Colaba Cartel every Monday and Thursday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I think, again, going back to when you were 27, you decided it and you ended up becoming one of the youngest MPs, right? Or was there any... I mean, of course
Sachin and I were both... Sachin Pilot and I were the youngest.
So how was it like being in the parliament, right? I mean, this is, we only see it in TV. Everybody's screaming and shouting at each other.
No, there's a lot of screaming and shouting even when we were there.
So I'm just saying that the image of the parliament, unfortunately, at least on TV or whenever it is shown, is very, very...
Well, 2-3 observations. One is that I never faced any discrimination based on my age. A lot of people have asked me that. I never faced... Nobody who was senior than me in terms of age came up to me and said, I mean, we were called Baba Log, which according to me is a derogatory term, but we never faced any discrimination in parliament. When I raised my hand to ask a question during question hour, I would always get an opportunity to ask a question. When I wanted to participate in a debate, I would always get that opportunity. For example, when the Right to Information Bill was being passed in Parliament in 2005.
No, and you were one of the
I initiated the debate, and which first time MPs don't get to initiate such landmark flagship debates of a government. And I got that opportunity to do that.
But right now, I mean, talking about RTI, suddenly it looks like that whole thing has got diluted. There was a time when RTI was big, but right now, at least off late.
See, RTI was... Weirdly enough, even before my party was in government in 2004, the BJP government under Atal Bihari Vajpayee had passed a similar bill called the Freedom of Information Act. But it didn't get implemented because there's a lot of resistance to it. The political class, the bureaucratic class don't want accountability. Just think about it. I mean, pre-RTI, pre-2005, you and I as citizens couldn't ask questions of the government. I mean, we could ask questions, but the government would say, go to hell. I don't have to answer you. And this made it mandatory for the government to reply to you and made the government more open, transparent, accessible. So it obviously led to some disruption. But there are attempts now to dilute RTI, to take away its teeth. And that's something I think all of us as citizens must fight. We must oppose. We must make sure that it's a strong law. It remains a strong law. And it's easily accessible to everyone. Because I think there are obviously certain areas which, are already, which the government can say, I don't want to answer that. If you ask something, if tomorrow Vishal Gondal files an application says, I want to know about national security, something about defense, what's happening on our border with China and Pakistan, the government can refuse to divulge that information. And that's fine. Those are the safeguards in the RTI Act. But it's very important to allow people to access government and to make government far more transparent. Because look, the old way of thinking of government was I vote for a politician once every 5 years, and that's when that person is accountable. That's when the government is accountable. That's when I get to ask questions. And with technology, government and governance is actually changing. So as a minister of telecom IT, I also had the opportunity to lead the National E-Governance Plan, which is also making governance in real time through the internet.
So
and
a lot of the
through
digital India was actually conceptualized during that time, whatever we see in digital India
absolutely,
now.
Absolutely.
A lot of that
Digital India is a sort of a slogan that the Modi government has given to a lot of different initiatives that existed well before it. It's not a bad thing. And it's just a wrapper on it. So
because being Minister of IT and Communication was again such an important portfolio given where today's India's IT infrastructure is. Today, thanks to Jio, people are all consuming high-speed internet. The whole country has gone from no internet to 4G.
Yeah.
So it is really transformed. So what role do you think the whole technology is now playing, and what did you see during your time as a minister that time?
I mean, so many things. I mean, we knew technology was a huge enabler. We knew technology is going to allow India to really leapfrog in terms of productivity, because we are at par with the best telecom economies of the world. We have high bandwidth, like you said. We're just about to auction 5G spectrum. We have millions and millions of smartphones. So we always knew, and as a minister, I always knew that this is an industry and an area which was going to empower India, and especially the youth, especially people living in villages, especially the disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was always an exciting area, but I think the potential of e-governance was not really I think e-governance in the last 10 years, you're starting to see e-governance come into effect.
Aadhaar was literally the first step, right, of e-governance.
No. Many other things before Aadhaar. So for example, back in the day, if you wanted to get your passport renewed, or you wanted to get pages on your passport, it was the most painful process. People would come to me and ask me to write letters to the passport officer to essentially get people earlier access. And now you have this Passport Seva Kendra, which has made it so easy. And that's part of e-governance.
And that's, I think, operated by TCS or one of the...
That's part of my ministry's, when I was a minister, part of the National E-Governance Plan, where it's a public-private partnership with TCS. It's so seamless and so easy.
Exactly.
Filing income tax returns online. Simple. Earlier, you had to go to Aikar Bhavan, fill up your form. Now you just fill it up online. So e-governance is here to stay. It's only going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, but why do most people not know that this was done during your time? Because it almost looks like all this has happened now.
That's now asking me a political question. But that's a matter of, look, in politics and in governance, simply just working behind closed doors is not good enough. Communication is very, very important. And today, not just in governance, but even in politics, if you're a politician, you can't just be a well-meaning, bright guy. You have to be perceived to be a well-meaning, bright guy. And that means you have to communicate effectively. So, I think that the market share of communication for a successful politician is now close to 30, 40, 50%.
And I think what has changed is, previously the world was about one-way communication, broadcasting.
And I think, just to finish, I think that it's actually not a healthy trend necessarily, because I think what's happening is politicians are becoming media personalities, and we are becoming celebrities, and not necessarily bright people who know how to apply their mind, frame effective laws, understand what the problems are.
No, but my point is that's where today's society is, right? In the past, it was one way. There was newspaper and TV and radio and banners and posters. That's all is gone. Everybody is on Twitter and Facebook and two-way communication. You want people to be communicating to you directly, because previously what your communication was coming on a poster or a slogan. That is changing. People want to read your tweets. People want to see your videos. So it's a very different era. And we saw what happened in America, where, already there are claims of how social media had such a huge role in electing the president.
Sure. So internet has changed politics completely. So like you said, the opinion cycles have shrunk. So earlier, for example, if there was a scandalous news story in a newspaper, the editorial team of that newspaper needed a day to do more homework and put part 2 of that story out, debate it in the editorial room. There would be fact checks. The consumer of that content had 24 hours to digest that news and then read part 2. With television, that opinion cycle shrunk to like 7 hours, where you'd have
with the internet, it is 7
the
seconds.
scandalous story comes out at 8 a.m. and then by 1 p.m. there's another part 2 breaking news. By 7 p.m. there's another part 3 breaking news. With the internet, you're right. It's not just every 2 seconds, but it's even in 140 characters.
Yeah.
So someone can just say, I hate Vishal, and that's the news.
Yeah.
And that gets retweeted 10,000 times and that becomes a reality. So what that does in a profession like ours, where perception is very, very important. So it doesn't hurt a business as much. It won't hurt, let's say, an actor, for example, of a movie as much, because ultimately if someone, trolls them or does something to them, what really matters for them is how well they perform in a movie. What ultimately matters to a business is how well that business does, how many products they sell, what their revenue is, what their profit is. In politics, our currency is reputation. And so for us, reputational damage is
a big one.
Is a big thing. It's very tough to fix that.
Yeah. But coming to think about it, say normally when I've had other guests on my show, they've been entrepreneurs or professionals, and we tell them that how do you fail, and people fail and they quit and they take other jobs. In your case, failure is also very different, right? Or like you got elected 2017, you got the second term, but in the third term, I think that was the third
2009.
term, 2009, and then the third term, which was last time when
14.
the entire 2014, all the elections were swept by BJP and the Modi wave.
Right.
You, of course, lost the election.
I got swept away in the Modi wave, yes.
Exactly. So how does a politician take defeat or loss or, failure? Because here again, you don't fail for 1 month, like in a job or in a company where, you started a company chalane, you do something else.
It's tough, and it's tough because you can believe that people have rejected you and not necessarily your party. And that can hurt a little bit. But, you have to take politics in your stride, and you have to know when you get into politics. And I knew this when I got in, because I'd seen it again from close quarters, that politics is about ups and downs. And ultimately, I think, Vishal, whether you're in politics, whether you're in public life, whether you're in the entertainment world, you're a actor, musician, whether you're a businessman, entrepreneur like yourself, eventually the cycle go up and down.
No, but I'm just saying, like here it is like you have to next time 5 years before you can perform again. While in a company, in a startup, in a job, you're in a job, you didn't do well, you quit the job, 2 months, 3 months notice.
No, it's very disruptive for a lot of people. To be honest with you, it hasn't been hugely disruptive for me. So for example, if you're a politician who is living in a sarkari home because by virtue of being an elected representative, and you lose the election, you lose your home. You lose your income source overnight, and that can be disruptive. That can create a lot of other problems. So it is a very tricky profession in that sense. It requires a lot of guts. It requires a lot of staying power, and it requires certainly a thick skin. And it's not. That's why people don't get into politics because.
So I had talked to a lot of people, like running a company.
But to answer your question, it's like I treat it as the same way as an entrepreneur would by failing. That what can I learn from failure? So is there something about me that is the reason I failed? Is it something not about me, but perhaps there was a wave which had nothing to do with Milind or with Vishal, but had something to do with parties and other individuals? Then those are not things which are necessarily in your control. But it helps you reflect on a lot of issues. I certainly believe my 2009 re-election was not as much of a learning experience as my 2014 loss was. In the 2014 loss, I've learned far more than I did when I won again in 2009.
No, but keeping yourself motivated for a long time, right? Which is again the challenge is that, right? And especially with you, because you have so many ideas.
I think for me, look, I got into politics at an early age, and I got the opportunity to serve in parliament at the age of 27, which people don't get. And I got it by virtue of the fact that I came from a political background. I don't deny that at all. And I'm grateful for that, and I've tried to make the best out of that. So the fact that I got in at such an early age, I was one of India's youngest members of parliament. I was one of India's youngest union ministers. It means that it's okay if you have a bad cycle. In the long run, when the cycle corrects itself and you get back into power, you still will be relatively young.
The interesting part about what you are doing especially is that, again, this is all what we have read, is that Congress party is rebuilding itself. You have set up this, it's a completely new party in that sense. You are doing a new structure, new things. So it is like you are pivoting yourself in a startup terminology. So how do you pivot a 100-year-old? I know Congress is what, 100 and...
way beyond
150-year-old is
1885 was when it was started.
So how do you pivot a political party? I mean, people can pivot products, companies. How do you pivot?
It's a very good question, and it's not easy. I think that Congress,
and you are responsible. One of the key guys doing the pivot.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I would say that if you ask me, this is my personal opinion. This is not the party's opinion.
Oh yeah.
But I would say, for a party as old as we are like a behemoth. We are like a Tata, for example, in the sense that you are a blue chip company, large company. Suddenly imagine a massive disruption hits the Tata group and all its businesses. For the Tata group to take, it's like a truck. For a truck to take a U-turn, it really needs to slow down or to take a right turn or a left turn. For a scooter, it can do that very, very quickly. Yeah. And so for us, that was the challenge. Even for a party like BJP now, as they've become a big party, it's going to be very hard for them to withstand disruptions. And therefore, I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we saw the emergence of like a regional party like AAP, they were the startup, they were the scooter in a sense. Yeah. They could maneuver as quickly as they wanted. And when they got into power, they formed the government in Delhi not once but twice.
And they could focus, because the minute they got outside Delhi, they couldn't get the same
but now
success.
They are a truck, for example, again. So now again, for them to maneuver, it's very hard because they're a large established party. So it's completely true of politics as it is of the private sector. The same dynamics are at play. And for our party, I think we realized that there were changes happening in India while we were in power. From 2004 to 2014, one of the biggest changes was the fact that RTI had spread a lot of awareness. Social media had spread a lot of awareness. People knew what their rights were. People were questioning the government far more assertively than they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And a lot of those were initiatives of ours. And so we realized that those changes are actually hitting us because we are the party in power. We were the first party in power when RTI was implemented. We implemented RTI. We were the first party in power when social media emerged. So successive governments now know how to deal with RTI. They know how to deal with social media. We didn't know how to deal with these things. And this is true not just of India, but of politics around the world. A lot of countries, a lot of parties who were in power when social media really broke through, when they had a similar RTI kind of law, they were just grappling with dealing with that issue. There was a newfound awareness among citizens, a newfound confidence among citizens. And it was very hard for us, in spite of noticing that this is a trend and that this is potentially going to hurt us. It was hard for us to take a U-turn because we were a truck.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Shunyavan, 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 Shunyavan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
So, between all these things going on, how did a boy from South Bombay ended up meeting Pooja from the suburbs? I thought that South Bombay people don't meet South Bombay.
Playing up this whole South Bombay.
Of course, I'm not playing that up.
North Mumbai divide.
Even today, you didn't want to go to one of the suburbs to meet us, right?
That's not true. That's not true. I was in the area. I said I was in the area.
I'm just saying that we are meeting you in South Bombay.
I think the sea-link in some ways for motorists has united the city in many ways, and it's sort of melted away those. But
so again, there's so much different in Pooja and Mr. Shetty, movie background.
Yeah, I mean, we are very different in many ways. You are right, and I'm a very South Mumbai, connect and knows the business community very well, in active politics. She's in the entertainment industry,
and Imagica, the
very well-known family in the entertainment industry, and successful entrepreneurs. And so it was, there's no reason why we should have, but I mean.
So I was very surprised, very frankly.
I guess variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
And we both kind of like the fact that, I think we both respect the fact that the other person is successful in what they do.
And where did you meet first?
We met, in fact, very close to here at the Oberoi, incidentally, at a photo shoot.
Okay.
India Today was doing a story in 2004 or 5, I can't remember now, but on young people to watch out for. And there were 5 of us on the cover. There was Pooja, myself, there was Rahul Sharma, the Santur player.
Yeah.
There was somebody else who I can't remember now. And we were on the cover. It was about youth. And that's how we met.
Wow. So you can at least give the press the credit for this.
I always tell people at India Today that on a good day, I give you the credit. On a bad day, I blame you.
And how does Pooja take this? Of course, she's non-political completely. So how do you manage?
She's all right. She's not into politics at all. She doesn't really know what's happening in politics. The good thing is she has no expectation from me. I have no expectation from her. We both do our own things. She knows as much about politics as I know about her industry, very honestly. And I think that's what makes it fun and interesting, because when she tells me about, a movie or a song or a certain actor even, or a certain director who's doing really well, and I probably haven't heard of that person, it's refreshing to learn from her. And similarly, when I'm talking about politics and she's like, who is that? I've never heard of that thing. And it's nice to have different backgrounds. And it would be very boring if I was married to someone who followed politics or, in whichever way. Or I think for her also, if she was with somebody who was in the entertainment industry, it's refreshing that we don't know what the hell the other person is talking about.
You certainly make an amazing couple, because, you have united South Bombay as well as the suburbs, which also I don't
believe in this divide actually, although people make it.
Well, you are the MP of South Bombay. You have to come in Parliament and give a clarification on this divide.
I don't think there's a divide. I think that it's overstated and it's overestimated. I think that
Well, the funny thing is, I now consider I live in South Bombay because Chembur has got connected with that Eastern Freeway.
But Vishal, what the problem is actually, it's not a cultural divide. That's what people misunderstand. It's actually because of poor transportation links in the past.
It used to take so long.
It was very tough to go between the two places. Now nobody blinks an eyelid to go.
I reach from Chembur to NCPA in 19 minutes.
Yeah. So if you're Sunday a motorist, once the metro is ready, if you want to use public transportation also, it will be much, much easier. So it was really because Mumbai had...
all I'm saying is that you need to at some point of time answer this important question, because many stand-up comedians, many movies are making fun of it, and there's nobody better than you.
People have asked me this question, but I don't think that there's a cultural divide. I think that there's a infrastructure divide. And I think that infrastructure divide is an interesting point. I think that actually does exist. So for example, now we're in the monsoon season. If you look at potholes, which is a big issue in Mumbai city, you'll find tons of potholes in the suburbs, but you won't find potholes on Marine Drive.
Why is that?
And I like to take credit for that, obviously. But it's not really me. But what it is that because
the same cars come here. It's not like different cars.
Quote unquote, by the way, I'm using my fingers to say that, but South Mumbai and parts of South Mumbai, not all parts of South Mumbai, but certain parts of South Mumbai, like Marine Drive, is considered by authorities, certainly not by me, but by authorities as a VIP area. There are big industrialists living here. There is the municipal commissioner lives next door. The BMC office is there. The police commissioner works there. The chief minister of Maharashtra lives around here. So why don't
we just move their houses to the suburbs?
I wouldn't want that to happen, because in this area, but what it does highlight is that it's an interesting, serious point. Is that it does highlight the fact that if the authorities and if the municipality wants to fix the pothole problem,
they can fix it.
They can fix it. So what that means is there's something wrong happening in areas where you have potholes. That means that the contractors are using substandard material. It's a good experiment to prove that.
So my point is, you've been a union minister. You've been in all parts of politics. Why somebody like you can't fix it? Who can? How can an ordinary citizen like me do anything? If you are saying this...
Look, I'll tell you this.
How do we fix this?
Here's how I think we should fix it. And my first question to your listeners, to you, is if I ask you who the mayor of Mumbai is, would you know? You wouldn't know, right?
Mayor of Mumbai. Do we have a mayor also?
Exactly. So that's my point. And that's the heart of the problem. As someone who's been in politics now for 15 years and has represented Mumbai, no, I really believe this, Vishal, that, and this has nothing to do with party A or party B. Regardless of which party is in power, the problem in Mumbai city is that there is no governance. So what happens is when there's a flood or when there's a fire or when there's a terror attack, what we all do is we get angry, we make videos and songs and candlelight vigils and troll and do all these things. But what we're really angry about is our own ignorance.
Yeah.
Because we as a citizen have failed ourselves. We as a citizen have failed to put pressure on authorities to govern us.
And
I say that, and the reason I'm talking about this mere point is what cities around the world do. If you look at London, for example, if you look at New York City, when there's a terrorist attack, when there's a flooding, when something goes wrong, the person who is out there assuring the citizens that things are under control
Sadiq is
the mayor of that city. Not the chief minister or the governor of New York State who will come and assure the citizens of New York City. It's the mayor of New York City. Not the prime minister of England. It will be the mayor of London City. And like when I asked you that provocative question, people in Mumbai don't even know if we have a mayor. We don't even know who the mayor is. And that's where
I just know there's a mayor bungalow somewhere for sure.
Yeah. That's where I was born, by the way. I mean, not in the bungalow, but when my father was mayor.
Okay.
So the mayor, the problem is that the mayor has no powers in Mumbai city. The real problem is that the mayor is a nominal head. It's a titular head. It's like the president of India.
No, but my question is whoever has the power.
Nobody has the power. So power is segregated between many authorities. So if you look at Mumbai and you look at the authorities that run
Mumbai. There's
BMC, there's the police, there's the railways, there's the port trust, there's MMRDA, there's the State and Road Transport Corporation, which runs the Bandra Worli ceiling. There are multiple agencies coming under multiple governments.
No, but so again, Milind, this is the new generation, right? Today, what we see is
what Mumbai needs is
people are tweeting to Sushma Swaraj and saying, "Oh, I have lost my passport. I am stuck in the middle of nowhere."
Who would they tweet to if something goes wrong in Mumbai? Let me ask you.
I have tweeted Fadnavis sir so many times, but
Fadnavis sir is the chief minister of Maharashtra. He cannot possibly run Mumbai.
Who do we
also.
tweet for Mumbai?
The problem is you don't have anyone to tweet for.
Okay.
You don't. That's why I'm trying to tell you how severe the problem is and what the solution is. I'm giving you a solution.
Should become a state.
The solution, when people say there's corruption, there's this, there's that, we need to change this party, bring that party, that's all rubbish. I've heard this 1,000 times. I've seen it from inside. I'm telling you what the solution is. The solution is Mumbai needs a directly elected mayor.
No, but the way it looks to be is that the solution is get another politician there. And then
that's a short-term solution, because then that politician, even if that politician is well-meaning, bright, capable, will not be able to deliver because the system is broken.
Okay.
So it's basically, the solution I'm repeating is to have a directly elected mayor, somebody who the city can elect at a citywide level. Right now, the mayor of Mumbai, Vishal, is one of 227 municipal councillors that 227 wards have elected. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a vision for Mumbai, he or she. They have a vision for one small
but
ward.
I'm saying changing that election of mayor.
It's very simple. It's as per the constitution, it's permitted. It's a word called devolution, which means give power to the local authorities. Today, if you go to a village.
So let me put this back.
I'll answer you. If you go to a village and you go to panchayat.
Panchayat, yeah, sarpanch is
who is the boss in a village? Not the chief minister. If tomorrow you and I are living in a village and you have a problem, you're not going to tweet to Fadnavis sir, as you call him.
Yeah.
You will tweet to the panchayat. You will tweet to the sarpanch. He's in charge. He's empowered. The sarpanch equivalent in Mumbai is a mayor. Yeah. But the mayor is not empowered. You don't even know he exists. You don't know what his name is.
The best thing, Milind, you should see whenever I use words with politicians, sir, G, etc. means I don't know them that well. But with Milind, you are Milind, right? That's why you are on my show and
you not call yet. Me also Milind sir. Yeah.
Modi ji. Yeah. So these are people, of course they are great people, but yeah.
Sure.
So again, going back to this, right? So, okay, we elect a mayor and all of that, but coming back to 2019, that's the big showdown, possibly in the whole world, India's biggest democracy going to vote. What is the pivot? What is the new product you are cooking together with Rahul Gandhi and the whole team?
I honestly, I'm being dead honest with you, I'm not really aware of the details that are going on there. I'm not part of some rebranding team, if that's what you think.
No, I'm not rebranding. I'm talking of the...
No, I think that what the party is trying to do is just, I guess, trying to come up with a narrative to the narrative that exists today. And I think ultimately the voters will have to judge what they want. And I guess for the Congress party, it's very clear that the Congress party cannot just criticize the party in power and expect people to vote for them. They have to present an alternate product. And that's what the party seems to be working towards.
And, if, again, normally my question
Simply
is
saying, your competition
so normally
is
my
bad.
question to the guests is that what if you were the Minister of India, what would you do? So my question to you has to be the opposite, that if you were a citizen of India, what are the 5 things you will look at for electing whoever is going to be coming next? What are the 5 things? If I have to vote in my constituency, what should be the 5 things I should look for? Because
I think, it's an interesting question. I would say one thing, Vishal. It's a very good question. I'll tell you why. Because again, I don't want to make this about Congress, BJP.
No, I'm just saying that just help me.
No, I'm just telling you by my own experience, again, as an observer of politics, not as a congressman or anything. I think what happened in 2014 was the Modi wave, as you said. What it did was it made people, voters, overlook candidates. And what they did was they said, I'm ignoring who that candidate is. And I'm just voting for Mr. Modi. And in voting for Narendra Modi, what has happened as a result of that is today the quality of parliamentarians has come down drastically. MPs are people who have criminal backgrounds. They are people who don't have the ability to participate in debates in parliament. They are people who have almost, not all of them, but a lot of them have close to no knowledge of issues like foreign policy, which impact India. What should our policy with China be, for example, on issues relating to economic growth, on issues relating to manufacturing, creating jobs, issues that really matter to India. Because we just ignored the candidate and we voted for Narendra Modi as Prime Minister. And I think now in 2019, it's very, very important that we bring quality people into parliament.
But isn't that normally you always say it's the leader who's most important? So people saying, let's get the right leader and hope that he will bring
It's true. So you need a balance between a national narrative and between a local narrative.
So you're saying in 2014, it was very, very skewed towards
I would say you need a healthy mix of both. You need a healthy mix where even though the MP doesn't really constitutionally have the powers that, say, a municipal councillor does or an MLA does to solve local issues, the MP still has relevance in representing a particular constituency's interests.
So what will be the 3-4 things
I would say you need to balance.
So first you're saying criminal record, of course.
No. I would say you need to balance who is a good candidate for a parliamentary election. Who is someone who can represent your interests well, who's educated, who stands for something, is someone who's accessible, is someone who has the right ideas for a particular constituency. Someone who, it's a rural constituency, who has the right ideas to represent farmers' interests. Urban constituency, who has the right ideas to represent a cross-section of people living in a city like Mumbai. Could be the urban poor, could be people living in slums, could be people living in chawls, could be people living in housing societies, could be businessmen, could be entrepreneurs. So you shouldn't overlook the candidate. And at the same time, think of what that national narrative should look like in India. So would you be happy with the narrative of the last 5 years to continue? Would you want a fresh narrative? Those are things that you have to debate. So I would say these are the 2 things you should keep in mind when you're debating and deciding.
So you're saying look at the candidate who's there on the ground and as well as look at the narrative.
Or the national narrative.
The national narrative.
I think in the last election, we pretty much ignored local issues and just looked at the national narrative. And today it's time to obviously judge whether that national narrative has delivered or not. And if it hasn't, then what are the alternative national narratives? And again, look at the local level on the ground, who best can represent me. So you have to be selfish also. You have to think local as well as national. That's the bottom line.
Got it.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Did I just catch you on your way to work? Or did you end up pulling an all-nighter? Let me guess. You have a packed schedule for the day, the week, and probably the month and the year. That's a lot for your mind to handle, don't you think? This buzzing chaos also brings tons of negative thoughts. Am I right? Try spinning that bottle in a positive direction with me, Chetna, on the Positively Unlimited podcast, every Monday on IBM Podcasts. It's time to change your life one alphabet at a time.
So also you've been in this profession which is considered, the most untrustworthy. I mean, not particular to you or anyone. In general, politicians are considered, all the negatives in the world is associated with politicians. How do you think that image can change? What will make a consumer, like RTI was there to make the government transparent? How can politicians become more
Vishal,
transparent?
I don't think that image is, people are always going to have a healthy suspicion, skepticism with politicians. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think in a democracy, it's not unhealthy to be skeptical of politicians. I think good democracies, it's a sign of the times that we should trust our politicians, but we should verify. You shouldn't be anarchic in the sense that I hate politicians, I hate government, I'm not going to vote. That's anarchy. That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
And as I said, you need a healthy mix of trusting them, but at the same time, a healthy mix of holding them accountable. So I think, but at some level, what's also happening, a trend which is not just true of India, but around the world, with social media perhaps, people have begun to, what's happening is every 4 or 5 years, every election cycle, you're seeing a government come in with a massive majority and then get thrown out with a massive majority. The churning period and the turnover rate is very, very high. And that's because we as citizens are not being patient enough. And I think at some level, we as citizens also have to learn to be patient. We have to learn to be realistic. Like in this Mumbai example, we think, if this politician isn't delivering, this party isn't delivering, let me switch to party B and politician B, and something will happen, that person has a magic wand. It doesn't work like that. So I would say it's healthy for us it's unhealthy for us not to trust politicians, but it's also unhealthy for us to blindly trust them. There has to be a balance between the two.
So talking of healthy and unhealthy,
I'm not as healthy as you for sure.
What are the healthy habits you have taken up over the last few years compared to before? I know you did. There was some football. You associated with something on the football.
That's not me playing football.
Yeah,
that's
but
just
I presumed you also played a little bit.
No,
football.
I don't play. Actually, I don't play any sport, unfortunately. And I don't really follow that much of sports. I mean, for me, music is my hobby. And I invest all my energy that I have outside of my
you go
work.
To the gym and other places for sure.
I train a few days a week, so I'm not very regular. I would say I'm reasonably regular about training twice a week. But I'm fairly irregular about doing 1 day of cardio a week. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, when it's not raining in Mumbai, then I try and swim, that kind of thing. But I'm not very...
So being a politician...
I don't eat healthy. Yeah. I don't, unfortunately...
I remember the sandwiches in your office. I love them. Every time I come there, we order those sandwiches.
That's right. But I don't eat healthy at all, unfortunately. That to me is a serious concern.
Yeah, you got these cheeselings for me specifically. And I was like, I stopped eating.
Yeah, but you become very healthy, no?
I'm trying. Let's put it that way.
You've lost so much weight and...
No, I'm still trying with Goki. Yeah, that's...
does that keep you in check?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only me, we have a whole team of people keeping me in check. Yeah. So on the health front, you are saying you're just doing the normal stuff.
I'm doing but nothing's changed.
And do you read a lot? Is our book something which excites you?
Not so much in the last 5-6 years, to be frank. I mean, I was I loved reading. I mean, back in the day, but not so much now.
And since music is so big, who are your favorite artists?
I mean, many people who you would have heard of and would have never heard of probably. But honestly, I know this can sound cliche, but I actually like almost all genres of music. I even can deal with a little bit of EDM, like techno music, a little bit. I can't listen to it on my phone or something, but if it's playing there and there's something interesting happening, I can listen to it. But I would say, for me, music has to mean, and again, now this is a debate, but it has to mean you have to play an instrument. I'm slowly getting around the fact that being a DJ is actually an instrument. I'm not fully there yet, but I'm not being elitist about it and saying...
So are you then... So when you make decisions, is the musician in you taking a decision or the politician in you taking a decision?
In decision in music, you mean?
In anything in life. Who is the one who's more...
I think musician in me. I think the musician in me. Ultimately, I have to do something from the heart. I can't do it from any other part of my body. I mean, it has to be
So the politicians are not the heart, the musician is the heart.
I'm not saying politicians are not the heart, but for me, politician is the brain. My brain is, in a sense, the politician. My heart is the musician. So I try and do things from the heart. I mean, obviously in life, you have to do things which you don't always get to do things that you really want to do and are passionate about.
If you had to create a rock band or a band with only politicians playing the music, who would those politicians be?
I don't know many politicians who play music.
Or who would you like to play something?
There's a funny joke. Once there was this, when in 2004 when we were in Parliament, there was a friend of mine from the BJP who was an MP with me, Manvendra Singh from Barmer, Rajasthan, very sort of arid, the desert region of India. And he had some interest. He liked to play, he knew how to play a little bit of the guitar bass, I believe. And another friend of ours and a colleague of ours, Tathagat Satpathy, who was an MP from Orissa, and he played a bit of the drums, I think. And we actually had a joke that we should start a band and call it MP3. But besides that, I haven't met... I don't really know people who play
a good
politics.
Campaign video for you would be...
Weirdly enough, actually in the northeast of India...
Yeah, there are a lot of people play amazing
so
music.
You heard of Shillong Chamber Choir, right?
Yeah.
So Shillong Chamber Choir, I won't take credit for discovering them, but Nirupama Rao, who was the foreign secretary, she told me about them and she's saying, Milind, if you can check them out, if they're a good quality band, we'd like to get them to perform for President Obama when he was in India. Mm-hmm. And I actually went to Shillong, and Mukul Sangma, who was the Chief Minister of Meghalaya at the time, he arranged a dinner for us with the Shillong Chamber Choir, and they started singing, playing. Neil and all these guys, I know them really well. And for me, it was more of a recce A&R kind of thing, just to see if they're a good band that can come and, on behalf of Nirupama, can come and perform for Obama. And suddenly, within 2 hours of hearing, 1.5 hours of hearing them perform, before you knew it, Mukul Sangma, the Chief Minister of Meghalaya, and I and the band...
We were all jamming.
We were jamming, we were playing the guitar, we were singing, we were having a few drinks. And so the Northeast is a unique place. And
music is in their blood.
Yeah, so my friend Gaurav Gogoi, who's also from Assam, he always tells me, he says, Milind, saying you would be like a huge rock star in the Northeast, because there you're expected to, according to him, to know how to play music and to play the music that I like, weirdly enough.
No, absolutely. And, as I
Goa
said,
is also like
maybe
that,
next time we want to see our politicians a little, letting their hair down, playing music. Maybe in Parliament.
Don't have much hair to let down,
maybe you should have a parliamentary band, or at least the parliamentarians performing in one of the sessions, because, as I said, otherwise looking at that TV, those sessions are...
It used to happen back in the day, actually, when I got to Parliament and I would meet some of the veterans, they would tell me that 20 years ago in the 80s, 90s, even my father would tell me, that at that time in Delhi, they would have musical evenings where people from different parties during a parliament session, in spite of having a very, difficult, tough debate in parliament, would actually get together and have musical evenings, Qawwali evenings, ghazal evenings. And that doesn't happen now. Now it's, so that's, unfortunately, that's a sign of the times. We've become very confrontational, as I said.
What is the last bit of technology you bought, which is under 10,000, which you use very often?
Under 10,000 rupees?
Yeah. Sorry, not technology, anything which is under 10,000.
a USB drive or something.
No, but that must be long time back.
No, that's... Besides that, what have I bought? Something with technology.
Which is, it may not be technology. Anything under 10,000 bucks, which you use a lot.
Probably a shirt.
A shirt?
Yeah.
No other piece of stuff which you use every day? Do you have any life hacks?
Not really, no.
No?
But let me think. Have I got something in tech in the last few months? No, I haven't actually. I haven't.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm uninteresting in that sense. Actually, yes, I would say I have bought something in tech, but it's relating to my guitar.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So I got a guitar tuner, because what I did was, it's hardly tech. It's very, very low tech, in fact. But
electronic tuner.
Yeah, an electric tuner which you clip onto your guitar. I have a tuner app on my phone.
Okay.
It's called Guitar Tuner, like Tuna, like the fish, but it's like tuner.
Okay.
Play on the word tuner. But this is just a tuner you clip onto your guitar, and then you can, it helps you tune it. So that I bought for a few thousand rupees.
So you were an MP at 27, union minister shortly after that. Next elections is coming up. But where do you see yourself 10, 20, 30 years down the line? Are you going to see you as PM at some point of time?
Hopefully alive.
And as a PM?
No, honestly, hopefully alive 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And I'll be happy if I'm alive. I don't really plan too much about...
You're going to be alive. Don't worry. We can put you on Goki and I can then make you alive.
I need to do that. You've given me a Goki actually wearable, which I haven't used yet. And it's lying at home.
We need to
somewhere.
send you a new one. A new one, by the way, comes with blood pressure monitor in it.
Oh, wow.
It's the first
please do that. Please. I really would like to use it.
Yeah.
You can see I don't wear any watch.
So we'll get you on that for
this
sure.
will be my next watch. I'll market it and promote it. But I just see myself, Vishal, I can't say where will I be in politics. What will be my role?
Because the only thing from here is that, right? I mean, you've already become a union minister,
I don't think
right?
it's like that. I think that I personally believe in politics. I've got a lot at a young age and I'm being very patient about it. I'm not in a rush. I think God's been very, very kind to me. I'm happy in spite of not being in power. I'm not obsessed about being in power. A lot of people I know who lost power.
So given all the music and all the things you have, why don't you become the culture minister next time? And help change the culture
first
of
we
this
have to
country.
come to power, then we can debate those things. Yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. But let's assume you come back to power. What would be the things?
I don't know. I can't say that. I like areas, where you can, like for example, when I was telecom and IT minister, I did a lot of interesting things. But when I was shipping minister, an interesting thing that I got to do was, at one point, I discovered that the shipping ministry, government of India, operates 180 lighthouses around the country.
Wow.
And which are functional lighthouses, mind you, which are actually used as navigational aids for ships. And I asked the department how many of these lighthouses are open to tourists, and none were. And then I thought to myself, there's so many countries in the world, like in Europe and all, where the tourism is built around lighthouses. And we have such stunning lighthouses in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, in Mumbai, right away from the coast of Mumbai. There's a lighthouse called Kanoji Angre Lighthouse. Beautiful lighthouse. Oh. And I actually created a lighthouse tourism policy, which Mr. Gadkari is now taking forward.
Wow.
So I like to do things like that. I like to when I was in government, I like to think of things that people aren't thinking of based on my my experience, and see if they can be implemented in India, if they're sustainable, and do those kind of things. So I can't really predict what that could be. It could be culture, could be economic portfolio, but I can't predict what that will be.
But one thing I have to say, Milind, that, knowing you for such a long time, you've not changed a bit. You have the same energy, the same idea, the same excitements. And I just wish that we have more people like you take up politics, because I think part of the problem in the country is that we don't have people as smart of...
Maybe you should consider it. You should.
Well, all I can tell you is that right now I'm busy making roles. India healthy.
That's that's part of politics, right? That's politics.
No, for now,
what you're doing, you're just making a lot of money. You'll make a lot of money on the side, but that's part of politics. That's a job of a politician, essentially, to make people healthy.
Absolutely.
You're doing what the politicians and the public sector fail to do.
No, well, as I said, certainly that's something we'll look at later. But for now, a pleasure to have you on the show.
Likewise,
it's been quite a great conversation.
It's been fun catching up with you with a microphone in front of us.
Absolutely. We're on record, at least at this time. But we should catch up soon, and all the best for 2019.
And thank you. And congratulations with your podcast.
No, it's been fun.
I hear it's doing really well. So keep it up.
Thanks a lot, Milind.
Yeah, it's IVM here, let's go. We the IVM kids on the block over here. Just to talk, taking a break from producing all day. Coming on this podcast cause we got stuff to say. IVM Daily is the name of the show. Monday to Friday, we ready to go. Talking about stuff in our head. We might even talk about our favorite bread. Signing out, it's IVM here, the podcast network that's in your ear.
Catch IVM Daily, Monday to Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Give me a word. या कोई भी लाइन. कुछ भी हो सकता है यार. क्या कहा आपने? टोपी. Okay. Mohan Joshi hated wearing topis. He felt suffocated in them. टोपी पहनते ही उसे स्कूल की याद आती थी. Where of course he had no choice but to wear a टोपी. But जिस दिन pass out हुआ, उसी दिन उसने अपनी टोपी का bonfire बना दिया. And since then, he'd never worn a cap or a hat. ना कड़कती धूप में, and not even to बचो from the ठंडी. But from Monday 26th February, Mohan Joshi had to wear a topi all the time. Why? Because if he didn't, Everyone around him knew exactly वो क्या सोच रहा था. They knew that he was wondering how the girl in the yellow churidar would look बिना कपड़े के. They knew when he was calling the boss a sadela टमाटर. They knew everything. पर ये सब हुआ कैसे? अरे भाई, यही तो स्टोरी है. और ये स्टोरी आप ही ने मुझे दिया by giving me the starting word. यही तो है The Croc's Tales. Words आपके, कहानी आपके लिए. Catch the stories on Monday and Thursday on the IVM website, app, and anywhere you get your podcast from. See you soon.